Section 5 of Essays on Art. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Essays on Art by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Translated by Samuel Gray Ward. Section 5. When we hereafter announce such maxims as we esteem true, it would be our wish, as they are drawn from works of art, to have them practically tested by artists. How seldom does one man agree with another concerning a theoretic principle? The practical and immediately useful is far more quickly adopted. How often do we see artists at a loss in the choice of a subject, in the general composition according to their rules of art, in the arrangement of details, the painter doubtful about the choice of his colors? Then is the time to make trial of a principle. Then will the question be easier to decide. Do we by its aid come nearer to the great models and all that we love and prize, or does it forsake us in the empirical confusion of an experiment not thoroughly thought out? If such maxims should prove useful in forwarding the culture of artists, in guiding them among difficulties, they will also aid the understanding, true estimation, and criticism of ancient and modern works, and, vice versa, will again be discovered in the examination of these works. This is the more necessary to attend to, since, in spite of the universally acknowledged excellence of the antique, individuals, as well as whole nations, have in modern times often misconceived those very things wherein the highest excellence of those works lies. A satisfactory trial of these will be the best means of securing us against this evil. Let us now take, as an example, the usual course of proceeding of the amateur in plastic art, in order to make it evident how necessary a thorough criticism of ancient as well as modern works is if we would profit by it. No person of a fine natural perception, however uncultivated, can see even an imperfect, incorrect cast of a fine ancient work without being greatly impressed by it. For such a representation still gives the idea, the simplicity and greatness of the form, in a word, the general notion at least, such as a man of imperfect sight would see at a distance. We may often observe how a strong inclination towards art is awakened through such an imperfect medium, but the effect is analogous to the object that caused it, and such beginners in art are rather impressed with a blind and indefinite feeling than with the true worth and significance of the object itself. It is such as these, who are the authors of the theory, that a too curious critical examination destroys our pleasure, and who decry and resist the investigation of details. But when, by degrees, their experience and knowledge become wider, and a sharper cast in place of the imperfect one, or an original instead of a cast, comes under their observation, with their insight, their satisfaction is also increased, and continually advances when at last the originals themselves, the perfect originals, become known to them. We are not deterred by the labyrinth of thorough examination, when the details are of equal perfection with the whole work. Nay, we learn to perceive that we are able to appreciate the perfect, just so far as we are in a condition to discern the defective, to distinguish the restored from the original parts, the copy from the model, to contemplate in the smallest fragments the scattered excellence of the whole, is a satisfaction that belongs only to the perfect connoisseur, and there is a wide difference between the contemplation of an imperfect whole with groping sense, and the seeing and seizing with clear eye a perfect one. He who devotes himself to any department of knowledge should aim at the highest. Insight and practice follow widely different paths, for in the practical each one soon becomes aware that only a certain measure of powers is meted to him. But a far greater number of men are capable of knowledge, of insight, we may even say that every man is so who can deny himself, subordinate himself to objects, and does not strive with a rigid and narrow individuality to bring in himself, and his poor one-sidedness, amid the highest works of nature and art. To speak suitably, and with real advantage to oneself and others of works of art, can properly be done only in their presence. All depends on the sight of the object. On this it depends whether the word by which we hope to elucidate the work produce the clearest impression, or none at all. Hence it so often happens that the author who writes concerning works of art deals only in generalities, whereby indeed the mind and imagination are awakened. But of all his readers, he only will derive satisfaction who, book in hand, examines the work itself. On this account, therefore, we may in our essays be often in the way to excite rather than gratify the desire of our readers. For there is nothing more natural than that they should wish to have before their eyes any excellent work of which they read a minute criticism, to enjoy that whole which is in question, and to subject to their own judgments the opinions they hear concerning the parts. But whilst it is the expectation of the authors to labor in behalf of those who are already acquainted with some works, and will see others hereafter, we shall try to do what is possible for those who have neither the prospect or the retrospect. We shall make mention of copies, point out where casts from the antique or ancient works themselves, particularly those of German art, may be found, and thus forward, as far as in us lies, a true love and knowledge of art. End of section 5. Recording by Cam Davis.